Hello, I'm Dr. Kатерина Хортон. This is a description of what happens to the victims once they get blacklisted by the intelligence agencies. It seems to be the case that these sprawling intelligence agencies use the life of the victims for their own purposes. And this could be anything. It could be the training up of young spies, the testing of weapons, the testing of pharmaceuticals, or the testing of the interaction of pharmaceuticals and nanotech with weapons, and all these sort of things. It seems to be the case that this is done on contract for the government to test certain weapons, or even for contractors and people who pay externally. One of the first and most prominent aspects is essentially what the victims call gang stalking, or organized stalking. Thereby victims are followed around wherever they go. What they shop is monitored, what they buy online is monitored, so it also goes hand in hand with the surveillance of the electronic communications, email surveillance, phone surveillance, all of these things. So a total surveillance of not just everything they say inside their home as well as outside their home, over digital communication methods, over phone, also by post. So post is opened. Then also this sort of organized stalking is done very overtly, very demonstratively, also with the with the purpose of disconcerting the victims as well. Then what also seems to happen is systematic break-ins into the home. That's a very common thing that is reported. So the break-ins would be what I term Stasi style. So the purpose is not burglary, but the purpose is disconcertment or inconveniencing the person. In these break-ins, typically items are demonstratively rearranged in a way that's noticeable, or items are taken away or put back again after a while, or foreign items appear. Sometimes clothes are stained in a way that cannot be washed out, stained permanently. Furniture is damaged, floors are damaged, walls are damaged. Sometimes more sophisticated things are done. For example, I know of a case where I think a Hollywood actor had his new clothes that he would buy replaced by virtually identical clothes, or clothes of the same look and make in different sizes. So these kind of mind games are played on the victims. Then other things that happen to victims is sorry, I should mention the cutting up of clothes, so the damage to clothes. Also removal of documents. As part of the break-ins, also what happens is break-ins into their computer, so damage to electronic equipment remotely or actually through entry in the home. Poisoning of food or contamination of food inside the home that's being consumed by the victims. Sometimes it is also smear campaigns and slander in the community, which is then backed up with, for example, the downloading of criminal content, for example child pornography, onto the computers of the victim. And this is just the beginning. So this is just what falls under the organized stalking and harassment category. So then come a new category, which is attacks with electromagnetic equipment. These are microwave weapons which can target the victims inside the home and give them medical symptoms, pain, can trigger muscles remotely, cause terror, organ damage, brain damage, damage to eyesight through irradiation with microwaves or focused shots. Victims are tortured in a systematic way. They experience sexual assaults when essentially their genitals are targeted and tortured in a systematic way. They also are played with. So the actual harassment follows a play pattern or a punishment pattern. So when they try to protect themselves, they get punished even harder, they get microwaved even harder. Then there's, on top of the microwave weapons, there's an extra layer, which is the, it falls in the same category. It's called voice to skull. This is a technology whereby sound can be essentially beamed into the head. So instead of using the ears, it is stimulating the actual auditory system inside the head, either by using the pathways, so the neural pathways, or actually parts of the brain, to transmit speech essentially. So by using the actual internal anatomy of a human to make it operate like a radio, pick up signals like a radio, simply because the actual neural and the nerves transmitting signals operate just like like the electronics in a radio to a certain extent. Then there's another layer, which is essentially what's called sometimes psychotronic weapons, or brain interference weapons, whereby certain emotions can be triggered, also using, for example, focused microwave beams, triggering a certain gland. This has been described by Dr. Barry Trow, a microwave weapons expert. But there are many other ways human emotions and thought processes can be interfered with. And a new technology seems to be this remote neural monitoring, or what's known as remote neural monitoring, whereby human beings are remote controlled. So their brain signatures read out, and the signal that the brain generates during activity is essentially read out, analyzed, and then fed back to human beings, who are then made to do the same activities. So reports are that the speech can be forced, they can be forced to say certain things that they don't mean to say, their limbs can be controlled, their hands can be remote steered, their limbs can be made to jerk, eye movement can be controlled, perceptions can be controlled, the actual brain thought processes can be overloaded or can be forced onto certain topics. The internal dialogue can be forced onto certain topics. Victims are also electroshocked or receive a pulse to the head if they don't think the right things. So victims are also implanted non-consensually. These implants can do many things: cause pain, read out their bodily functionality, read out their speech, read out their subvocal speech. So this is when humans are thinking and don't vocalize, they just kind of subvocalize. They have the internal speech running. And essentially the situation seems to be that what victims become is a plaything, and it's to the first order outlaws without any human rights whatsoever. And they become a plaything and an avatar for testing purposes of the intelligence agencies. So they will have anything you can imagine done to them, not just property damage and Stasi-style stalking or COINTEL-style stalking, but also mind interference, very much akin to the death camp experiments from the Nazi times, the MK Ultra trauma-based mind control experiments. Their social support network is specifically broken up by the intelligence agency so that these people cannot seek help. Their income opportunities are devastated. Their companies are bankrupted. They lose their job. They are made to lose their job. They are forced to act out using these technologies to actually portray them systematically as mad. And many other horrific things are happening to them in a systematic fashion. And a lot of the time the victims are not believed because people think, oh, so many things could never happen to one person at the same time. And that's precisely the point. It is to discredit them, and the key is to realize this is not by chance. This is a targeted takedown operation by a criminal group, so a criminal ganging up on a person. And as I said, this is done now to a staggering number of people. So we're talking in the many thousands per country, but people report that it could be as much as in the millions worldwide. What these people essentially become are outlaws for the testing of weapons and pharmaceuticals for the big conglomerates in the pharma industry, in the weapons industry, in the military intelligence complex, and also sometimes the targeting and the maiming and murder of their pets, the targeting of their friends, of their families, sometimes for their entire life, so all the way until they die. It's essentially like a program that targets them for life, and they become outlaws for life. So